All right, welcome new Nomad Sculptors, and I want to go over some common issues you may have when you're just starting out working with Nomad Sculpt, or if you've been working with Nomad Sculpt for a while. So the first thing is that your Nomad Sculpt setup doesn't look the same as mine. So if you go to these options here, so you can change like all the colors of everything. You can change like the contrast of things, so things will look a little bit different. You can change the widgets and the base. I really don't want to change this too much, but so you can change a lot of these things to just customize your look. Also, the background color, if you go tap on here, and then I'm using this nice purple, but you can change it to whatever color you want just by tapping here. So the background color is going to be different. There's also a grid. So the grid is down here. If you hit front, this is a snap cube. I'll talk about this in a moment. But see, we don't see the grid. I use the grid a lot, but when I hit front, you're not seeing the grid. This is because we're on perspective. When I started this, it just automatically went to perspective view. So what that is if you tap the camera, you'll see there's perspective and orthographic. And I prefer to sculpt in orthographic, because when you're dealing with perspective, if I have a sphere here and a sphere far back over here, then they're going to be two different sizes, and sometimes it can just get annoying when I'm trying to sculpt on one single thing. I don't want to deal with the size difference in perspective, so it can sort of throw me off. So I just use orthographic. And also with orthographic, you can see the grid. So I'm going to zoom out and tap front. I'm going to use the gizmo. Let's just validate this sphere. Also, when I start a program, or when I start a new sculpt, I delete the default sphere and then I add a new sphere, because this sphere is only 6,000. When you open the program, the default sphere is like 90,000 or something like that. So I just prefer the smaller sphere. Okay, another thing I always do is I always bring it up, line it up with this red line. Usually I just use that as like the floor. So again, here, this is the snap cube. So the snap cube just shows front, left, right. Just gives you an idea of where you are with your project, but you can adjust it a little bit. So if you tap this little cog here, the display settings, you can go down to snap cube. And obviously you can turn it off and on, and then you can make it a different shape. So if it's like, now it's like a sphere, but I don't like the sphere. I like this square, or the box. So that is the snap sphere. So another big thing that I get all the time, I'm going to turn the grid off. And also, these are just shortcuts. And the shortcuts are, let's see where they are. Yes, add shortcuts to bottom. So if you wanted to take certain things off, like for example, these are the shortcuts that are down there. There we go. So the grid is here if you didn't want that shortcut there, or if it's not there, you can add it here. So another big thing is the disco ball, or your sculpts being pixelated, or people always explain it differently. So let's just go with this sphere. And usually when I'm sculpting, so I'm tapping this little material, see the material, the sphere. If you go down to smooth shading, if you turn this off, then it's going to look like a disco ball. Then it has this, and your sculpt it's always going to look like this. So some of you, when you first start Nomad, that's going to be automatic. So if you go to smooth shading and you put it, and it's in auto, it might automatically be off. If you want to change that, which I have, because I prefer it to look smooth when I'm sculpting, if you want to change that, then just tap the cog here, and you can turn this, let's open this up so you can see. So right now, smooth shading auto is on. You see the line, but if I turn this off, then it'll automatically be off. So just set that once. I prefer it to be on when I start something, but sometimes, like for example, if I add a box, let's just hide the sphere for now. So if I add a box and I validate it, see, smooth shading is on, so the box looks a bit funny. So if I just want a box with sharp edges, then I will go into the material tab and I'll turn smooth shading off for that. Sculpting in orthographic versus perspective. I got a comment yesterday that someone was saying that they'd rather sculpt in perspective, which is fine. I'd say however is the best way for you to sculpt, definitely sculpt that way. But this is one of the reasons why I don't sculpt in perspective. So I have a sphere in a box. So let's say I want to move the box above the sphere. So I'm going to hit front. Oops, I'm going to hit front. And now I want to line up the box with the sphere. So we'll take it, we'll line it up. So that looks like it's perfectly aligned. Let's see, there we go. It looks like it's perfectly aligned. But perspective will always change the way things look. So now if I look here, it's not perfectly touching. And now it looks even less like it's perfectly touching. So, you know, is it perfectly touching or not? It's hard to know because we're using perspective. Also, you can see the back of the box underneath. So is it the back or is it the front? That makes sense. Seeing perspective, you're seeing the back of the box as well. So that's why I sculpt in orthographic, because if I just want something to touch, if I want something to be exact, then I do that. And I know that it's exactly what I want it to be. And then later on, I'll switch to perspective. That's just one example, but obviously when you're dealing with sculpts and you're dealing with hours and hours of stuff, when I put something somewhere, I want it to be exactly there. And then later on, I'll add perspective. When I sculpt, I change from lit PBR. So let me find it first. So this is the lighting, the little sun. So right here, there's lit PBR and there's matte cap. So I always sculpt in matte cap. And lately I've been using, I think I've been using this one. Sometimes I use this one. Sometimes I'll use, let me go to the other one. That might be better for this example. Yes, PXG clay. So sometimes I use PXG clay. And a big question I get is people are following along with my tutorials, and I always sculpt like this. It's just easier to see the sculpts, I think. But then they wind up trying to color it. So they'll tap here, and then they'll tap the colors, and then all the colors are this weird muted sort of browns and things like that. And they try to color it, and they can't get the colors that they want. You can sort of get weird colors, but they look strange. So when you're coloring, just make sure that you go back here and you change it to lit PBR, and then you can do your coloring and everything will be exactly the colors that you want. Let's say you add a layer and let's say you paint this, and you add another layer and then you paint it like a different color. So obviously this is how layers work. You can hide the layers and each layer. So you have a layer, and then you have the base. So firstly, I'm trying to paint, but I'm on the middle layer, so you can't really see it. So that's one tricky thing. Make sure to check your layers. You might be confused as to why you can't do certain things. So just remember, if you have layers, that can sometimes constrict your movement, and sometimes you'll try to drag something, and then once you let go, it'll just go back to the normal shape. So I can't figure out how to reproduce it. I'm not sure why. Probably because I'm making a video, and that's how it goes. Anyway, so hopefully those were helpful. I'm gonna start doing some more tutorials, some more process videos. I have to ease back into doing some 3D work because I've been gone for a long time. Obviously, you know, I got married and went on a honeymoon, so I've been gone for a long time. Anyway, thank you guys all for watching. Let me know if there's any other things that are confusing or that you want me to go over, things that are helpful. I'll be happy to do that. Keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. Be sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to go more in depth, then definitely check out my Skillshare classes where I am a top teacher. I have about 50 classes, both Procreate and Nomad Sculpt. I also have a few classes on Udemy, so if you want to learn more, or you just like my style, you like the way I teach, you want to support me, those are some other places that you can do it. Thanks again, keep drawing, keep sculpting. I'll see you all in the next video.